Throughout human history, pandemics have shaped civilizations, disrupted societies, and altered the course of history. From the Antonine Plague of ancient Rome to the Spanish flu of the early 20th century, infectious diseases have repeatedly tested humanity's resilience. The world witnessed the devastating smallpox outbreaks, which decimated indigenous populations in the Americas. More recently, the COVID-19 pandemic reminded us that pandemics are not relics of the past, but ever-present global threats. But among all these pandemics, one stands out as particularly catastrophic. A plague so deadly that it reshaped economies, societies, and even the very fabric of life in medieval Europe. This was the Black Death, a pandemic that swept through the 14th century, leaving a trail of unimaginable suffering and death. Join me as we journey back in time to explore the origins, spread, and aftermath of one of history's deadliest pandemics, the Black Death. How did it begin? What made it so deadly? And how did it change the world forever? Let's uncover the dark legacy of the plague that changed history.
In the 14th century, Europe faced a devastating plague, a catastrophe that wiped out nearly half of its population. The Black Death, as it came to be known, left behind a changed world. But what caused this catastrophe, and how did it alter the course of history? The origins of the Black Death are traced back to the distant lands of Central Asia. It is believed to have been carried by fleas living on rats, which spread rapidly across trade routes. In 1347, during a Mongol siege of Kaffa, the plague made its way to Europe, marking the beginning of an unimaginable tragedy. The movement of troops, traders, and merchants accelerated the plague's spread, reaching Italy, France, and beyond by 1348. The symptoms of the Black Death were horrifying: fever, chills, vomiting, and the appearance of painful buboes, swollen lymph nodes that gave the plague its name. In just a matter of days, victims would succumb to the disease. Entire communities were wiped out in a matter of weeks, with some areas experiencing death rates as high as 75 to 80%. Cities like Florence and Paris became ghost towns as death took hold with terrifying speed. The death toll left a profound mark on Europe. With so many dead, labor shortages affected agriculture and trade. The feudal system, already struggling, began to collapse as survivors demanded higher wages, leading to social unrest. The plague also led to widespread fear and superstition. Many believed the Black Death was a punishment from God. This led to the persecution of minority groups who were blamed for causing the plague through supposed poisoning of wells. Though the Black Death brought unimaginable suffering, it also led to some long-term societal changes. The dramatic reduction in population allowed for economic recovery in the following centuries. Wages rose, and some historians argue that this led to the birth of the Renaissance, a cultural rebirth in the arts, science, and humanism. In medicine, the devastating effects of the plague led to the development of more advanced public health systems and early understandings of contagion. The Black Death remains one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, yet its legacy endures. While we no longer live in the same conditions, the Black Death serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile life can be, and how society can adapt and change in the face of calamity. As we look back on the Black Death, we see both the fragility and resilience of humanity. The Black Death was a bubonic plague pandemic that occurred in Europe from 1346 to 1353. It was one of the most fatal pandemics in human history. As many as 50 million people perished, perhaps 50% of Europe's 14th century population. The disease is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis and spread by fleas and through the air. One of the most significant events in E. In 1347, plague first entered the Mediterranean via trade ships, transporting goods from the territories of the Golden Horde in the Black Sea. The disease then disseminated across Europe, the Middle East, and Northern Africa, claiming up to 60% of the population in a large-scale outbreak known as the Black Death. Rats have long been blamed for spreading the Black Death around Europe in the 14th century. Specifically, historians have speculated that the fleas on rats are responsible for the estimated 25 million plague deaths between 1347 and 1351. However, a new study suggests that rats weren't the main carriers of fleas and lice that spread the plague. It was humans. In a study published in January 2017 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers simulated Black Death outbreaks in European cities to try and understand how the plague was spread. In their simulations, they looked at 3 possible models for infection: rats, airborne transmission, and fleas and ticks that humans carry around with them on their bodies and clothes.